Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Malveaux Talks. Before I get started, I just want to let you know that I had intended to do a series of videos on the Nazis because their influence is still heavily felt in Western civilization and society, whether we like that or not. But Starr was afraid that it would take down the YouTube channel because of the YouTube guidelines. So, if not for nothing, I will do that. I may just put it up on my YouTube channel to save a lot of time, but Starr is going to bring some of that to you in another form or fashion. Anyway, I'm going to get back into the American values. And part of the reason why I did the video on Carol Connor is because I need visual aids to help this click with many of you. This American value is materialism. Now, materialism can be taken in two forms. It can either be the philosophical form, which has to do with the here and the now, and that's all that's important, or, as is more generally understood in terms of the pop culture, raw and naked consumerism. And that's the part and the inflection that I'm going to focus on, consumerism. You see, that is a very important aspect. It also feeds into another aspect of this American value of materialism, which is the ideology of comfort. But when we think in terms of consumerism, you must think, what would you do if you couldn't have your cornflakes in the morning, your beer, if something were to happen where beer had to be rationed, if you couldn't have the daily amenities, all you sneakerheads, what would happen if the rubber that we, or Nike, I should say it like this, that Nike had in the manufacturing of the sneaker, the Jordans and everything else had to be repurposed by decree of government for the tires of tanks, jeeps, if we should ever get into a ground war or some kind of other military manifestation wherein rubber would have to be rationed. And you sneakerheads could not get the new Jordans. Oh, you would be rioting in the streets. Popping off bullets through windows, you would just tear up all of downtown if that were to happen. And that's why it doesn't happen, you see. World War II was the last time that Americans were superimposed and forced to have to do without. You see, and people talk, I think, very flippantly and blithely about sacrifice and why doesn't the government, in terms of the wars that we have now in Afghanistan and Iraq and all of these other places, why doesn't the government ever ask us, or any government in the West really, and austerity is not to really even be taken necessarily that seriously. Yes, it gives a crunch on credit, but in terms of the access that you still have to products, that is not what is necessarily hindered by any kind of time of recession or, as is known in Europe, austerity. You see, the association that the citizen and consumer has with the product is never necessarily tampered with. And that's why after the Twin Towers went down, the politicians, even though some people said it was, if not insensitive, even a kind of blithe spirit of superficiality, but the ability to say, go shopping, go to the movies, buy that car, don't let the terrorists interrupt what you're doing. You see, all of that has to do with the terror, the fear of the consumer not being able to have what they want to have or have a change in their routine in life. And to drive this point home further, you see, the reason why we don't have any kind of real rationing of products, the reason why the government wants you to go and get a beer, go to the supermarket and buy with more and get less, is because if we were to have any kind of change in that kind of routine, if the American were to not have access to the products that he or she wants, they would riot. No question about that. They would be politically uncontrollable. Take, for instance, and this is why I had to talk about Archie Bunker before I even got to this American value. If you go through the episodes of All in the Family, you will see Archie Bunker lives in terror of not being able to have his beer. And as the great salesman of the 20th century, Peter Drucker, said, what people pay for is not the product. Nobody pays for the product. What they are purchasing is satisfaction. If Archie Bunker didn't have his beer, and more importantly, did not have the job to get that beer, or to have his cigar, or wherever it was, you sneakerheads, when you pay for those Jordans, you're not necessarily paying for the sneaker, you're paying for the satisfaction. You're paying for the satisfaction of knowing that you got the new joints before anybody else had them. Now, if the government were to come in and take that away for any kind of national purpose, you would be uncontrollable. Such is the ideology of comfort, that whatever is going on, be it a terrorist attack, be it in some kind of inflation, economic depression, you better not take away my beer, my cornflakes, my sneakers, whatever it is that gives you satisfaction.